Hello there once again, friends and enemies, and welcome back to Unfinished Archetypes, where I talk about a set of cards that Konami released that were supposed to be an archetype that never got finished, and try and figure out what they were going for. Today's archetype I never would have found out existed if someone hadn't told me, and that is Bounzer. Unlike the last two archetypes, this type actually has 5 cards in the set, and one of which is an extra deck monster. So let's jump into the cards and we'll talk about them a little bit afterwards. Starting off, we have Blade Bounzer as one of the monsters, who can, if it attacks and your opponent still has a monster after it attacks, you can discard a card to attack again. We also have Hammer Bounzer, which if you don't control any cards and your opponent does control cards, you can summon the monster without tributing. And its secondary effect requires you to have no spell and traps on the field, and if you attack an opponent's monster, they cannot activate any spell or traps until the end of the damage step. Last of the main deck monsters is Phantom Bounzer, which if destroyed from the field and sent to the graveyard, it can get 2 Bounzer cards from your deck into your hand. That leads into our Trap Bounzer Guard, which can target a Bounzer monster and make it not be able to be targeted by card effects and not be able to be destroyed by battle, and then if your opponent attacks that turn, they have to attack that monster. That leads us to our last card in the set, the extra deck card, Photon Strike Bounzer. It requires 2 level 6 monsters in order to be played, and it has a once per turn quick effect where if a monster effect is activated on your opponent's side of the field, you can detach a material to negate that effect and deal 1,000 damage to your opponent. 2 things stand out to me with the Bounzer archetype. The first is that all of the Bounzer monsters are level 6, and the second is that this deck was very obviously meant to be like a control archetype, kind of. The archetype seems focused on getting rid of your opponent's ability to do things. So obviously finishing out the archetype as a whole, you would have to lean into that, make more cards that negate more things or destroy more things, and keep doing that over and over and over again, and probably more cards that can get Bouncers into your hand out onto the field, stuff such as that. I could absolutely see this archetype being leaned really heavily into monsters without so much care about spell and traps. I could see this deck working in a few more Xyz monsters, maybe even a Synchro and a Link monster, but overall, this set of cards, this pseudo archetype seems to be really straightforward to me. It's meant to be a stop your opponent from doing things deck. Blade Bounzer being the only non-level 6 monster kind of makes sense to have some monsters that you can normal summon in there, but I feel like we should have something that has all of the Bounzer monsters be level 6 that makes it so that they can be normal summoned without tributing, much like Hammer Bounzer. Off at the top of my head, I can't think of many things that Bounzer could be paired with, although I am very certain that there are plenty of generic monsters that you could put into Bounzer to just make it be a, like, Xyz rank 6 beatdown deck, probably. But other than that, as I said before, it seems very clear where Konami was going with this archetype. That being said, that is all I really have to say about Bouncers. Let me know how you feel about Bouncers, and if you've played Bouncers in a deck before, let me know how well they work out with each other. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found something to enjoy about this video, and until next time, as always, drink your water.